when a dedicated kindergarten teacher, Miss Sarah Jenkins, notices a little girl, Maya, wearing the same thick, pink winter coat every single day, regardless of the fluctuating spring weather, for 52 consecutive, increasingly unsettling days. It is an anomaly that slowly, insistently burrows under her skin. This wasn't just a child's peculiar attachment to a favorite garment. It was an unwavering, almost ritualistic adherence. The coat a shield Maya refused to relinquish, her small, frail body lost within its bulky confines, her eyes holding a premature weariness that Sarah found deeply disturbing. The coat, with its slightly grimy cuffs and perpetually zipped front, became a silent, oppressive question mark in Sarah's bright, cheerful classroom. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. And if you believe every teacher has the power to make a profound difference, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. For weeks, Sarah wrestled with her growing unease, her observations painting an increasingly grim picture, until a peculiar, sickly sweet odor emanating from the child, coupled with a fleeting glimpse of something deeply wrong beneath the coat's stubborn zipper, forced her to confront a possibility too horrifying to readily comprehend, leading to a discovery that would unravel a terrifying secret hidden in plain sight. Sarah had poured her heart into teaching for 15 years at Willow Creek Elementary, her classroom a vibrant sanctuary of learning and laughter. Her own small house on the outskirts of town, meticulously kept, often felt too quiet, echoing with the absence of a family she had once dreamed of, a quiet sorrow she channeled into an almost fierce devotion to her young students. But nothing in her years of experience, nothing in her gentle, ordered life, could prepare Sarah Jenkins for the devastating truth concealed by that worn, pink winter coat. Sarah Jenkins, in her late 30s, possessed a quiet warmth that drew children to her like moths to a gentle flame. Her classroom, Room 103, was a testament to her dedication. Walls adorned with colorful student artwork, a cozy reading nook overflowing with well-loved books, and the gentle scent of crayons and paste always lingering in the air. She knew every child's favorite color, their secret fears, the subtle nuances of their personalities. Her life outside of school was one of routine and solitude. After losing her partner, David, to a sudden illness 5 years prior, her work had become her primary focus, her students the recipients of the vast well of love and care she had to give. Her small, tidy bungalow with its carefully tended garden was her refuge, but the silence within its walls could sometimes be deafening, a stark contrast to the joyful cacophony of her kindergarten class. This perhaps explained her heightened sensitivity, her almost preternatural ability to notice the small, often overlooked details in a child's behavior or appearance. And Maya, from the moment she'd arrived a few weeks into the spring semester, had been a puzzle, a small, silent enigma wrapped in a winter coat too heavy for the increasingly warm days. Her main confidant at Willow Creek was Mrs. Eleanor Diaz, the school counselor. Mrs. Diaz, a woman in her late 50s with kind, perceptive eyes and a wealth of experience, had seen it all. She was a grounding force for Sarah, someone whose wisdom and calm demeanor Sarah deeply respected. Sarah had mentioned Maya's coat to her early on, a casual observation at first. "She just never takes it off, Eleanor, even when the other kids are complaining about the heat." Mrs. Diaz had nodded thoughtfully, advising patience but also vigilance. Maya was brought to school each morning and picked up each afternoon by a gaunt, older woman with perpetually tired eyes and a deeply etched frown, whom Maya referred to as Grandma. This was Ms. Elara Vance. Ms. Vance always seemed harried, her movements abrupt, her clothes often slightly disheveled. There were no overt rumors about Maya's family, just a vague, unspoken understanding amongst some of the staff that they were having a hard time, that Ms. Vance had taken Maya in under difficult, unspecified circumstances. The enrollment forms were scant on detail, listing Ms. Vance as the sole guardian. One blustery Tuesday morning, about 3 weeks into Maya's attendance, Sarah witnessed something that sent a small, cold shiver of unease down her spine. She was supervising the children coming in from the car line, her attention momentarily diverted. She glanced towards the parking lot just as Ms. Vance was ushering Maya out of a battered old sedan. Maya stumbled slightly. "Ms. Vance, her back mostly to the school, grabbed Maya's arm with a sudden, harsh grip, her fingers digging into the bulky sleeve of the pink coat. Her face, for a fleeting instant before she seemed to remember where she was, contorted into a mask of cold, severe impatience. Then, as if sensing she might be observed, her expression smoothed into one of weary resignation, and she gave Maya a rough pat, propelling her towards the school entrance. The entire exchange lasted no more than a few seconds, a subtle crack in Ms. Vance's facade of beleaguered caregiver, but it left Sarah with a lingering metallic taste of disquiet. Willow Creek Elementary, with its sprawling green lawns, its cheerful murals, and the constant, reassuring hum of activity, was, on the surface, an idyllic small-town school, a place where children were meant to feel safe and nurtured. Yet, Maya's persistent, silent presence, encased in that unseasonable coat, felt like a discordant note in the otherwise cheerful symphony of childhood. Sarah observed Maya closely. The little girl flinched almost imperceptibly from any accidental touch, especially near her torso. She never participated in art activities if it involved putting on a smock over her coat, and she certainly never removed the coat to do so. During circle time, she always sat slightly apart from the other children, her small hands tucked deep into her pockets, her gaze often fixed on some distant, unseen point. These were small things, easily dismissed in isolation, but together they began to paint a troubling, albeit still indistinct, picture for Sarah. The coat wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a barrier, a fortress. The days turned into weeks. 30 days. 40. 50. The pink winter coat, now noticeably grimy around the cuffs and collar, remained a constant. The spring air grew warmer, flowers bloomed in the school garden. Other children shed their jackets for t-shirts, but Maya remained bundled. Sarah's unease deepened into a gnawing anxiety. She tried gentle persuasion. "Maya, sweetie, it's quite warm in here today. Why don't we hang your pretty pink coat on your hook, so you'll be more comfortable?" Each time, Maya would shake her head, a small, almost frantic movement, her eyes widening with a flicker of something that looked like pure terror. She would clutch the front of the coat, her small knuckles white, as if Sarah had suggested removing a vital organ. This reaction, far beyond simple attachment, confirmed Sarah's growing fear. This was not just a comfort item. This was something more. It was day 52, a particularly warm May afternoon. The classroom windows opened to a gentle breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass. The children were restless, eager for the final bell. Sarah noticed it then, a peculiar, faint odor emanating from Maya as she walked past her desk. It was a strange, cloying smell, sickly sweet, but also with an underlying metallic, almost coppery note. It was faint, easily missed in the general classroom aroma of Elmer's glue and disinfectant, but Sarah's senses, already on high alert where Maya was concerned, registered it instantly. Later, during quiet activity time, Maya was sitting at a low table, struggling to reach a box of crayons that had been pushed to the center. As she stretched, her small body contorting, the zipper of her bulky coat, already under strain, pulled down perhaps an inch, no more. In that fleeting instant, before Maya quickly, almost instinctively, yanked it back up, Sarah caught a glimpse of something beneath the faded fabric of the coat's lining. It wasn't the cheerful pattern of a t-shirt, nor the smooth skin of a child. It was a flash of something dull, discolored, almost matted? Or was it just a very dirty inner layer of clothing, perhaps a soiled undershirt? Sarah couldn't be sure. The image was gone too quickly, replaced by Maya's wide, startled eyes fixed on hers. Sarah's heart began to pound. The strange odor, the glimpse of something unnatural, Maya's unwavering refusal to remove the coat. It all coalesced into a terrifying, unspoken question. What was being hidden? Her mind, a whirlwind of a teacher's worst fears, conjured images of neglect, of injury, of things she didn't even want to name. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that she had to see what was under that coat. But how? Forcing the issue could traumatize Maya further, could alienate her completely. Yet, not acting felt like a betrayal of the deepest trust a child places in a teacher. That afternoon, after the children had left, Sarah sat alone in her quiet classroom, the cheerful decorations suddenly feeling like a cruel mockery. She replayed the moment in her mind, the smell, the fleeting glimpse. She decided she had to speak to Mrs. Diaz again, more urgently this time. The school counselor listened intently, her kind face growing increasingly grave as Sarah recounted her observations, her voice trembling slightly as she described the odor and the split-second reveal. "Sarah," Mrs. Diaz said finally, her voice low and serious, "your instincts are usually spot on. This is highly concerning. We need to proceed very carefully. We can't just accost the child. But we also cannot ignore this. We need a legitimate reason to have Maya examined by Nurse Foster." Nurse Foster was Willow Creek school nurse, a pragmatic and experienced woman known for her thoroughness. Sarah felt a small measure of relief. She wasn't alone in this. Mrs. Diaz's validation, her immediate understanding of the potential gravity, was a lifeline. But the path forward was still fraught with peril. What if they were wrong? What if Ms. Vance found out and became defensive or worse, retaliated against Maya? The thought made Sarah feel physically ill. The next day, Sarah was a bundle of nerves, her usual calm shattered. She watched Maya with an almost painful intensity. During recess, she saw Maya stumble and fall, a minor playground tumble. But Maya didn't cry out like the other children might. Instead, she lay still for a moment, her face contorted in what looked like agony, her hands instinctively going to her midsection, beneath the coat, before she slowly, carefully, pushed herself up, her movements stiff and unnatural for a 5-year-old. Later, when Ms. Vance arrived for pickup, her eyes, like chips of cold flint, seemed to fix on Sarah, who was standing near the classroom door observing the dismissal. Ms. Vance's gaze was cold, suspicious, almost challenging. It was a silent, unnerving micro-cameo, a clear signal that her scrutiny had perhaps been noticed. Sarah felt a prickle of fear, a definite sense of intimidation. Had she been too obvious? Over the next few days, Sarah tried to gather more information without being intrusive. She noticed that Maya always struggled to carry her small backpack, even when it seemed almost empty. She held it awkwardly, clutched against her chest, rather than wearing it on her back. One afternoon, when Maya was briefly in the restroom, Sarah made a quick, discreet check of her cubby. There were no spare clothes, no forgotten snacks, no comforting transitional objects from home, save for a single tattered, faceless cloth doll, its yarn hair unraveled, stuffed deep in the corner. It looked as neglected and forlorn as Maya herself often did. The emptiness of the cubby, the absence of the usual childhood accoutrements, spoke volumes about the probable scarcity in Maya's life. Sarah's morale dipped. She spent her evenings at home, the silence of her bungalow amplifying her anxieties. She replayed every observation, every fleeting expression, every whispered word from Maya, which were precious few. Did she imagine the severity of the smell? Was the glimpse under the zipper just a trick of the light, a misinterpretation fueled by her growing worry? The weight of responsibility felt crushing. She found herself compulsively researching signs of child neglect and abuse online, each article, each list of symptoms, tightening the knot of fear in her stomach. The descriptions of untreated injuries, of children hiding pain, resonated with a chilling accuracy to Maya's situation. It was during nap time, a few days later, that Sarah's conviction hardened. The classroom was quiet, the children nestled on their mats. Maya, as usual, lay stiffly under her coat, though the room was warm. Sarah, circulating quietly, heard a small whimper. She paused beside Maya's mat. The little girl was asleep, but her brow was furrowed, her small face etched with distress. She whimpered again, a tiny, heartbreaking sound, and murmured, "Hurts! So cold hurts." Sarah leaned closer, her heart aching. The sickly sweet, metallic odor was undeniably stronger now, more pervasive. And then she saw it. The heavy-duty zipper on the pink coat, perhaps strained by Maya's restless sleep, had slipped down a good 2 inches. This time there was no ambiguity. Peeking from beneath the coat's lining, and under what appeared to be a thin, grimy t-shirt, was the definite, unmistakable edge of a soiled, makeshift bandage, or rather, a collection of what looked like old strips of fabric, like torn-up sheets, wrapped tightly, almost constrictingly, around Maya's tiny torso. The fabric was stained with yellowish-brown patches and darker, reddish smears. It was not just dirt. This was evidence of an injury or injuries being concealed and clearly not being properly treated. Sarah felt a surge of cold fury, quickly followed by a wave of profound nausea. She straightened up, her hands clenched, her mind racing. This was no longer suspicion. This was horrifying certainty. She documented everything meticulously in her private journal, dates, times, specific observations, Maya's whispered words. That afternoon, she went straight to Mrs. Diaz's office, her composure barely maintained. She laid out her latest findings, her voice shaking despite her efforts to remain calm. Mrs. Diaz listened, her expression growing increasingly grim. "Sarah," she said, her voice imbued with a new urgency. "This is undeniable. We have to act. Now, we need to get Maya to Nurse Foster immediately. We can't wait any longer." They knew the risk. Alerting Ms. Vance prematurely could be disastrous. They needed a plan, a pretext that wouldn't arouse suspicion but would allow for the necessary intervention. Their shared anxiety was a palpable thing in the small office, but so was their shared resolve. They decided on a plan that felt both risky and necessary. The next morning, during circle time, Sarah would accidentally spill a cup of water, some of which would unfortunately splash onto the sleeve of Maya's coat. This would provide the perfect, non-threatening reason to take Maya and her coat to Nurse Foster's office, ostensibly to have the coat cleaned and dried, and to ensure Maya herself hadn't gotten too wet or chilled. Sarah felt sick with anxiety at the thought of the deliberate deception. But the alternative, allowing Maya's suffering to continue unseen and untreated, was unthinkable. The weight of the impending confrontation, the potential unraveling of a terrible secret, lay heavily on her. The next morning arrived with a heavy sense of foreboding for Sarah. She went through the motions of greeting her students, her smile feeling brittle and insincere. When the moment came for the accidental spill, her hand trembled as she reached for the water cup. It happened as planned. A small gasp from Maya, a few droplets on the pink coat sleeve. "Oh, Maya, I am so clumsy. I am so sorry," Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with feigned dismay. "Let's go see Nurse Foster right away. She'll help us get your pretty coat cleaned up and make sure you're all dry." Maya looked up at her, her eyes wide with a familiar flicker of fear, but she allowed Sarah to gently take her hand. Mrs. Diaz, who had been coincidentally passing by the classroom, offered to accompany them, providing silent, crucial support. In Nurse Foster's small, bright clinic, the air thick with unspoken tension, Sarah knelt beside Maya. Mrs. Diaz stood quietly by the door. Nurse Foster, a woman with kind but discerning eyes, had been briefly, discreetly prepped by Mrs. Diaz about the possibility of needing to look beyond a damp sleeve. "Now, Maya," Sarah began, her voice gentle, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Let's just slip this coat off for a moment so Nurse Foster can take a look at that sleeve, and we can make sure you're not wet underneath. Then we'll get it all sorted." Maya's small body tensed, her hands instinctively clutching the zipper. But this time, with Sarah's reassuring presence, with Nurse Foster's calm smile, with Mrs. Diaz standing as a silent guardian, something in Maya's terrified resistance seemed to falter, just slightly. Very slowly, almost reverently, Sarah reached for the zipper. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal tab. She took a deep breath and began to pull it down. The zipper snagged, then yielded. As the pink winter coat parted, the full, horrifying reason for Maya's 52 days of unwavering concealment was starkly, devastatingly revealed. A collective gasp, quickly stifled, escaped Sarah and Mrs. Diaz. Nurse Foster's professional composure visibly cracked, her eyes widening in shock and disbelief. Maya's tiny torso, beneath a thin, filthy t-shirt, was tightly, almost brutally, bound with layers of what appeared to be old, stained rags and strips of dirty linen. serving as makeshift bandages. The bindings were pulled so taut that they seemed to cut into her fragile skin in places. The sickly sweet, metallic odor that Sarah had detected was now overpoweringly strong, the unmistakable stench of severe, rampant infection. As Nurse Foster, her hands now sheathed in sterile gloves, began to gently, painstakingly, unwrap the layers, the true extent of the horror became apparent. Beneath the rags, Maya's skin was a patchwork of raw, weeping burns, some old and partially, horribly healed into puckered scars, others fresh, blistered and oozing. There were also deep, ulcerated sores, possibly pressure sores from the unyielding bindings, or perhaps other injuries left untreated. Her ribs were starkly visible beneath her pale, almost translucent skin. She was shockingly emaciated, the bulky coat having effectively hidden her severe malnutrition. It was a scene of unimaginable suffering, of deliberate, cruel neglect, possibly active abuse, inflicted upon a helpless child. Maya stood silently, trembling, tears streaming down her small, pale face. Her eyes fixed on Sarah with a look of utter desolation and a dawning, terrifying hope. The world seemed to tilt for Sarah. The bright, clinical room swam before her eyes. This was not just neglect. This was torture. Nurse Foster, her face a mask of grim professionalism, immediately began to assess Maya's vital signs. Her voice, though strained, becoming crisp and authoritative. Sarah, call 911. Now, tell them we have a pediatric emergency, severe burns, suspected sepsis, severe malnutrition. Mrs. Diaz, contact Principal Thompson immediately, and then call Child Protective Services. We need them here yesterday. The high-pressure countdown had begun. Ms. Vance was due to pick Maya up from school in just over an hour. They had to ensure Maya was safe, receiving emergency medical care, and that Ms. Vance was intercepted before she could potentially interfere or flee. Sarah, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial, made the call to emergency services. She stayed by Maya's side, murmuring words of comfort she barely felt herself, her own heart shattering into a million pieces for this tiny, suffering child. Mrs. Diaz, her face pale but her resolve firm, quickly left to alert the principal and make the necessary calls. Sirens, faint at first, then growing rapidly louder, began to wail in the distance. Maya flinched at the sound, but then she did something that broke Sarah's heart anew. She reached out a tiny, trembling hand and weakly clutched Sarah's fingers, her eyes, for the first time, holding not just terror, but a fragile, desperate plea for rescue. The arrival of the paramedics transformed Nurse Foster's small clinic into a whirlwind of controlled, urgent activity. They worked quickly, efficiently, their voices calm but serious as they assessed Maya's critical condition, carefully cutting away the filthy t-shirt, exposing the full, horrific extent of her injuries. For lines were started, oxygen administered. Sarah stood back, feeling helpless yet fiercely protective, her hand still clutching Maya's. Police officers arrived, their presence adding another layer of surreal gravity to the scene, followed shortly by Agent Miller from Child Protective Services, a woman with a kind but no-nonsense demeanor. Principal Thompson, looking shocked and deeply distressed, conferred quietly with the officers and Agent Miller. The focus, however, remained squarely on Maya, on stabilizing her, on getting her the life-saving medical intervention she so desperately needed. Then, amidst the controlled chaos, Ms. Alara Vance arrived at the school's main office for pickup, oblivious to the drama unfolding just a few rooms away. She was met not by her granddaughter, but by a police officer and Agent Miller. Sarah didn't witness the confrontation, but she heard a raised, indignant female voice from the hallway, quickly followed by the firm, authoritative tones of the officer. The sounds faded as Ms. Vance was presumably escorted to a private office for questioning. The immediate threat to Maya from her guardian was neutralized. Sarah watched, her heart aching with a mixture of profound relief and gut-wrenching sorrow, as the paramedics carefully lifted Maya onto a gurney and wheeled her out towards the waiting ambulance. Maya's eyes, wide and filled with a mixture of fear and a dawning, fragile hope, sought out Sarah's one last time before she disappeared from view. The decisive turning point had been reached. Maya was finally, blessedly, safe from her immediate torment, on her way to receiving the medical care that had been so cruelly denied her. The emotional cost to Sarah was immense. She felt drained, hollowed out, yet beneath the exhaustion, a steely resolve was beginning to form. She had done the right thing. Once the ambulance had departed, its sirens fading into the afternoon traffic, a heavy silence descended upon Nurse Foster's clinic. Sarah finally allowed herself to break down, sinking into a chair, tears of grief, anger, and overwhelming relief streaming down her face. Mrs. Diaz put a comforting arm around her shoulders, her own eyes moist. "You saved her, Sarah," she whispered. "You saved that little girl's life." In the days that followed, Agent Miller kept Sarah informed. Ms. Vance had been arrested, charged with severe neglect and child endangerment. The burns, it was suspected, were from scalding water, possibly accidental initially, but then criminally neglected and deliberately hidden. The full story was still unfolding, a dark tapestry of deprivation and cruelty. Willow Creek Elementary, shaken to its core by the revelation, immediately began reviewing its internal protocols for observing and reporting long-term signs of distress and neglect. New, confidential reporting channels were established, and mandatory enhanced training for all staff was scheduled. Sarah's courageous intervention had already sparked significant, positive systemic change. Weeks later, when Maya was stable and had been moved from the hospital to a specialized therapeutic foster care home, Agent Miller arranged for Sarah to visit. Sarah entered the cheerful, sunlit room with a heart full of trepidation and hope. Maya was sitting up in a small armchair, no longer encased in the dreadful pink coat, but wearing clean, soft pajamas adorned with smiling cartoon animals. She was still very thin, her skin pale, and bandages were visible on her arms and neck, but the raw, haunted look in her eyes had begun to recede, replaced by a fragile curiosity. When Maya saw Sarah, a tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. She reached out a small, bandaged hand, and in it was a small, painstakingly made beaded bracelet, a string of colorful plastic beads. "For you," Maya whispered, her voice raspy from disuse, but clear. It was the first time Sarah had heard her speak more than a single fearful word. Then, Maya pointed to a sheet of stickers on her bedside table and carefully selected a bright, shiny butterfly sticker, pressing it onto the back of her own hand with a look of quiet satisfaction. In that small gift, that simple, quiet choice, Sarah understood with profound clarity. She hadn't just unzipped a coat that day. She had helped Maya begin to unzip her future, to reclaim a tiny piece of her stolen childhood. The physical scars Maya bore would undoubtedly take a long, long time to heal, the emotional ones perhaps even longer still. Recovery from such profound trauma would be a marathon, not a sprint. But Maya was finally, blessedly, in a place where true healing could begin, surrounded by dedicated professionals, by kindness, and by the unwavering promise of safety and care. For the first time in her young life, the possibility of a future free from pain and fear felt real and attainable. Sarah returned to her classroom at Willow Creek Elementary with a renewed, almost fierce sense of purpose. Her quiet, empty house still felt quiet, but it was no longer quite as empty. It was filled now with the echo of Maya's quiet courage, with the indelible memory of that tiny, whispered thank you, and with the profound, humbling knowledge that she had made a difference. She had always loved her students, but now her vigilance was sharper, her empathy deeper, her resolve to protect the vulnerable even stronger. Several months into Maya's recovery, Agent Miller contacted Sarah with an unexpected, life-altering proposition. Maya was thriving in her therapeutic foster environment, but she needed long-term stability, a forever family. She had formed a deep, trusting bond with Sarah. "Maya asks about you constantly, Sarah," Agent Miller explained. "You represent safety and kindness to her in a way no one else does. The agency is looking for a permanent placement for her. Given your connection, your unwavering support, would you ever consider becoming Maya's foster-to-adopt parent?" Sarah thought of her quiet bungalow, her carefully tended garden, the empty spaces in her life that had ached for so long. She thought of Maya's resilience, her fragile smile, the unspoken promise in her eyes. A warmth, profound and joyous, spread through her chest. "Yes," Sarah said, her voice thick with an emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "Yes, Agent Miller, I would be honored, more than honored." It was the hopeful, luminous beginning of a new chapter for both of them. A family forged not by blood, but by courage, compassion, and an unbreakable bond of love that had blossomed in the darkest of circumstances. That evening, Sarah sat on the small porch of her bungalow, watching the fireflies begin their nightly dance in her garden. In her hand, she held the small, colorful beaded bracelet Maya had made for her. Soon, Maya would be coming home, to this house, to this garden, to a life filled with safety, love, and the promise of a brighter dawn. A quiet, profound satisfaction settled over Sarah, a sense of peace hard-won and deeply cherished. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more. When a kindergarten teacher notices one of her quietest students wearing the same ratty wool scarf every single day, despite the rising spring temperatures, something about the girl's fierce protection of it begins to trouble her. What began as a simple dress code observation would soon reveal a horrifying pattern of abuse that had been hidden in plain sight for months. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from in the comments below, and if you believe that sometimes the most important things are the ones we almost miss. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that matter. She couldn't have known that unwrapping that faded blue scarf would change multiple lives forever, until she spotted the first unmistakable mark that changed everything. Hannah Collins had been teaching kindergarten at Maple Grove Elementary for just over 2 years. At 28, her bright personality and endless patience had quickly earned her a reputation as one of the most beloved teachers in the small elementary school. With her curly auburn hair usually pulled into a messy bun and warm green eyes that radiated genuine kindness, Ms. Collins, Ms. Hannah, to her 5- and 6-year-olds, created a classroom environment where children felt safe, valued, and eager to learn. Although relatively new to teaching, Hannah approached her role with a natural intuition that more experienced educators often remarked upon. Her classroom was a cheerful space filled with learning centers, reading nooks, and walls adorned with children's artwork. The large windows let in abundant natural light, illuminating the colorful alphabet cards and educational posters that created a stimulating yet calming environment. Hannah believed strongly that young children learned best through guided play and exploration, and she had arranged her room to encourage curiosity while providing the structure that helped her students feel secure. Hannah lived in a small apartment just 10 minutes from the school, sharing the space with her rescue cat, Milo. She'd moved to the quiet town of Maple Grove after graduating with her teaching degree, drawn by the close-knit community and the school's excellent reputation for supporting new teachers. While her parents and older brother lived 2 states away, Hannah had quickly formed friendships with several colleagues and neighbors, creating a support system in her adopted hometown. Principal Eleanor Martinez had been impressed with Hannah from her first interview. "You have a remarkable ability to connect with children," she had told Hannah during her recent evaluation. "The way you notice the individual needs of each student and adapt accordingly, that's something that can't be taught." Hannah had accepted the praise graciously, though privately she believed she was simply doing what any good teacher should do, paying attention. School counselor Darius Wilson had become Hannah's mentor and friend at Maple Grove Elementary. Their weekly check-in meetings to discuss student concerns often extended beyond the scheduled time as they shared teaching strategies and resources. Darius valued Hannah's observations, having learned that her hunches about students' emotional states were remarkably accurate. "You see beneath the surface," he told her once. "You notice the things kids try to hide." There had been discussions at recent staff meetings about budget constraints affecting support services throughout the district. The school nurse's hours had been reduced to 3 days per week, and the waitlist for evaluations through the district's special education department had grown increasingly long. Hannah had expressed concern about how these limitations might impact their most vulnerable students, particularly those from families already facing economic challenges. One afternoon in late March, Hannah had encountered an unfamiliar woman speaking with Principal Martinez outside the front office. The woman, who she later learned was Dr. Valerie Reed, the new district superintendent, had nodded curtly when introduced to several teachers, her attention clearly elsewhere. There was something dismissive in her tone when she mentioned accommodating the special needs population while maintaining standards. That left Hannah with a sense of unease about the district's changing priorities. Spring had begun to transform the small town of Maple Grove, bringing warmer days and occasional rain showers that turned the school's playing fields a vibrant green. The elementary school, a single-story brick building surrounded by towering maple trees that gave the school its name, buzzed with the energy of children increasingly eager for outdoor recess after the long winter months. Inside the kindergarten wing, classroom windows were often cracked open to let in fresh air, and light jackets had replaced heavy winter coats on the colorful hooks outside each room. It was during this seasonal transition that Hannah first became truly concerned about Lily Chun, a quiet 5-year-old who had joined her class shortly after winter break. The girl was small for her age, with delicate features and dark eyes that seemed to absorb everything while revealing very little. Her file noted that she lived with her father and grandmother following her mother's death 2 years earlier. Lily rarely spoke unless directly addressed, though her academic work showed she was bright and capable. But nothing could prepare Hannah for the mystery that would unfold around Lily's blue wool scarf. The first time Hannah really took notice was during an unusually warm day in early April. Most children had shed their winter accessories entirely, but Lily arrived wearing the same faded blue wool scarf she'd worn consistently since joining the class. During morning circle time, when the classroom grew warm from the spring sunshine streaming through the windows, Hannah observed beads of sweat forming on Lily's forehead, though the child made no move to remove her scarf. "Lily, sweetie," Hannah had said gently during their transition to center time, "it's pretty warm in here today. Would you like to take your scarf off while you're playing? You can hang it with your backpack." The girl's hand had immediately gone to the scarf, fingers clutching the worn wool protectively. "No, thank you," she'd whispered, her eyes lowered. "I need to keep it on." Hannah hadn't pushed the issue that day, assuming the scarf might be a comfort item, perhaps connected to her deceased mother. Many children formed attachments to specific objects that helped them feel secure, especially after experiencing loss. But as April progressed and temperatures continued to rise, Lily's insistence on wearing the increasingly dirty scarf began to seem less like a typical security attachment and more like a concerning compulsion. During outdoor play, when other children ran freely in short sleeves, Lily kept the scarf wrapped around her neck despite the visible discomfort it caused. During art activities, she carefully tucked the ends away to avoid paint splatters, showing unusual vigilance for a 5-year-old. Most troublingly, Hannah noticed that Lily never, ever removed the scarf, not during lunch, not during nap time, not even during water play at the sensory table. "Have you noticed anything unusual about Lily Chun?" Hannah asked Darius during one of their weekly meetings, about 4 weeks after the girl had joined her class. The counselor considered the question thoughtfully. "She's very reserved, which isn't uncommon for children who've experienced the death of a parent. Her academic screening showed strong cognitive skills but below average social-emotional development." "Why do you ask?" Hannah hesitated, not wanting to overreact to what might be completely innocent. "It's probably nothing significant. Just, she wears the same scarf every day, regardless of the temperature, even during nap time, and when I've suggested she might be more comfortable without it, she becomes visibly anxious." "Could be a transitional object," Darius suggested. "Something connected to her mother, perhaps? The file mentioned she passed away 2 years ago." "That's what I initially thought," Hannah replied. "But it seems different from typical attachment items. She's almost afraid to take it off. And I've noticed she's particularly careful about keeping it in place when it's time for pickup, especially when her grandmother comes instead of her father." Darius's expression grew more focused. "The grandmother is the primary caregiver, correct? The father works long hours." Hannah nodded. "Yes, though he's the one who usually drops her off in the mornings. The grandmother picks her up most afternoons. I've tried to engage both of them in conversations about Lily's adjustment, but the father is always rushing to work, and the grandmother's English is limited. Let me look more closely at her file, Darius offered. And maybe I could do a casual observation during your class time? Sometimes a fresh perspective helps. I'd appreciate that, Hannah said, relief evident in her voice. It's probably nothing concerning, but something just feels off. But nothing could have prepared Hannah for what she would discover the following week. The revelation came during a springtime celebration in late April, approximately 31 days after Lily had first arrived in Hannah's classroom. The kindergarten classes were having an outdoor picnic lunch, enjoying the perfect weather on the grassy area adjacent to the playground. The children were eating, laughing, and taking turns at various game stations the teachers had set up. Hannah was supervising the bubble station when she heard a sharp cry from the direction of the drinking fountain. She turned to see Lily on the ground, apparently having tripped while running back from getting water. Hannah quickly made her way over to the fallen child, asking another teacher to watch her station. "Are you okay, Lily?" she asked, kneeling beside the girl who was trying to push herself up. "Let me help you." As Hannah gently helped Lily to her feet, she noticed that the girl's fall had caused her scarf to become partially unwound. More concerning was Lily's reaction. Rather than focusing on her scraped knee, the child was frantically trying to readjust the scarf with shaking hands. "Sweetheart, you're okay?" Hannah soothed, reaching for a tissue in her pocket to dab at the small scrape. "Let me fix your scarf for you after we clean up your knee."
No.
Lily's voice was panicked, much louder than her usual whisper. "I can do it. Don't touch it." The intensity of her reaction only increased Hannah's concern. "Lily, I think your knee needs a bandage. Would you come with me to the nurse's office? We can fix your scarf properly there too." After a moment of visible internal struggle, Lily gave a tiny nod, though she continued clutching the scarf tightly around her neck with one hand. Hannah led her inside, noting how the child's eyes darted nervously around as they walked, as if searching for someone who might be watching. The school nurse wasn't on duty that day, but the office kept a well-stocked first aid kit for minor injuries. Hannah brought Lily into the small health room adjacent to the main office, closing the door to give the clearly anxious child some privacy. "Let's take care of that knee first," Hannah said cheerfully, helping Lily onto the exam table covered in crinkly paper. As she gently cleaned the scrape with an antiseptic wipe, she noticed that Lily's scarf had loosened further, revealing a glimpse of something unusual on the skin of her neck, what appeared to be a pattern of discoloration. Hannah maintained her calm demeanor while alarm bells rang internally. "Lily, your scarf got a bit dirty when you fell. Would it be okay if we take it off just for a minute, so I can help you fix it properly?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "I can't," she whispered. "Grandmother will be mad. She said never take it off at school. Never." The fear in the child's voice confirmed Hannah's growing suspicion that something was very wrong. She chose her next words carefully, knowing they could be crucial. "Lily, part of my job as your teacher is to make sure you're safe and healthy. Sometimes that means I need to check if there's something hurting you that I can't see. Would you be brave for me and let me look under your scarf? I promise you won't be in trouble." The little girl studied Hannah's face, seeming to search for something in her expression. After a long moment, she gave an almost imperceptible nod. With trembling fingers, she slowly loosened the scarf. What Hannah saw when the wool fell away caused her to freeze in shock, her breath catching audibly. Circling Lily's small neck was a ring of angry red burns, some healing, some fresh, that could only have been deliberately inflicted. The pattern suggested they had been made by something circular and metal, possibly the end of a heated household object. Interspersed among the burns were finger-shaped bruises in various stages of healing. Fighting to control her expression and the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her, Hannah gently touched Lily's hand. "Thank you for being so brave and showing me," she said softly. "Lily, did someone hurt your neck? It's very important that you tell me the truth, so I can help make it better." Tears spilled over onto Lily's cheeks. "Grandmother says I'm bad," she whispered. "When I talk about mommy or cry at night, she says the burns will make the bad spirit leave me." Her voice dropped even lower, She says if I tell anyone, they'll take me away from Baba, and he'll be all alone. Hannah carefully helped Lily rewrap the scarf, buying herself moments to process this information while ensuring the child didn't feel exposed. Every instinct screamed to gather the girl into a protective embrace, but Hannah knew the proper protocols for suspected abuse cases, including maintaining appropriate physical boundaries while gathering critical information. Lily, does your father know about what grandmother does? She asked gently. The little girl shook her head. Baba works at night. He sleeps when I go to school. Grandmother says it would make him very sad to know I'm bad, so we don't tell him. Hannah felt a complex mix of emotions, rage at the abuse this child had endured, relief that the father might not be involved, and a steely resolve to ensure Lily's immediate safety. You are not bad, Lily, she said firmly but gently. What your grandmother did is wrong. No one should hurt you like that, ever. I'm going to talk to some people who can help make sure this doesn't happen anymore. Fear flickered across Lily's face. But grandmother said. Your grandmother was not telling the truth, Hannah interrupted, her voice gentle but leaving no room for doubt. My job is to keep you safe. I promise you'll still see your father. Can you trust me to help? After a moment's hesitation, Lily gave a small nod, her eyes still uncertain but holding the first glimmer of hope Hannah had seen in them. With the child's scrape bandaged and scarf carefully replaced, Hannah asked the office secretary to sit with Lily for a few minutes while she checked on her class in reality. She went directly to Principal Martinez's office, closing the door behind her. I need to make a report of suspected child abuse, Hannah said without preamble. And we need to contact CPS immediately. One of my students, Lily Chun, has extensive burn marks and bruising around her neck that she's been hiding under a scarf. She's disclosed that her grandmother is responsible. Eleanor Martinez's expression turned grave as Hannah relayed Lily's disclosure. The principal immediately called Darius Wilson to join them, and together they activated the school's child protection protocol. Within 30 minutes, a social worker from Child Protective Services had arrived at the school, along with a police officer specializing in child abuse cases. In the hours that followed, Hannah remained by Lily's side as the little girl was gently interviewed by trained professionals. A medical examination confirmed what Hannah had discovered: multiple deliberate burn marks and bruising consistent with physical abuse. Photographs were taken as evidence, and arrangements were made for Lily to be placed in emergency foster care until her father could be located and interviewed. We'll be contacting Mr. Chan immediately, the CPS worker, Sandra Mitchell, explained to Hannah. Based on the child's disclosure, it's possible he's unaware of the abuse. If that's confirmed and he's deemed protective, she might be able to return to his care with appropriate safety plans in place. What about school tomorrow? Hannah asked, concerned about continuity for the already traumatized child. Let's wait and see what the investigation reveals, Sandra replied. Ideally, we want to maintain as much normalcy as possible, but safety comes first. I'll contact you as soon as we have more information. That evening, unable to stop thinking about Lily alone in an unfamiliar foster home, Hannah called Sandra for an update. The social worker confirmed that they had located Lily's father, who worked night shifts at a hospital as a janitor and typically slept during school hours. He appears to be genuinely shocked and distraught about the abuse, Sandra reported. According to his statement, his mother-in-law moved in to help care for Lily after his wife died. He trusted her completely with Lily's care while he worked. He had no idea what was happening. Do you believe him? Hannah asked directly. Preliminarily, yes. His reaction seems authentic, and his background check is clean. He's cooperating fully with the investigation. We're arranging for a translator to ensure nothing is lost in communication. But his English is actually quite good. The next part of the investigation revealed a disturbing pattern. The grandmother, Li Wei Chun, had brought traditional superstitious beliefs about evil spirits with her from her rural village. Following her daughter's death, she had become convinced that Lily was possessed by a malevolent spirit that needed to be driven out through physical means. What had begun as pinching had escalated to burning when the child continued to cry for her mother or show what the grandmother considered disrespectful behavior. Mr. Chun, working exhausting overnight shifts to support his family and often sleeping while his daughter was at school, had been deliberately kept in the dark. The grandmother had threatened Lily, telling her that revealing their treatments would result in her being taken from her father forever. The investigation expanded to include a thorough assessment of Mr. Chen's parenting and home environment. While he was cleared of any involvement in or knowledge of the abuse, authorities required him to complete parenting classes and agree to supervision before regaining custody of his daughter. In the interim, Lily was placed with a Chinese-American foster family experienced in caring for traumatized children, allowing her to maintain cultural connections while ensuring her safety. For Hannah, the days following her discovery were emotionally exhausting. She maintained contact with Lily's caseworker, provided documentation for the investigation, and supported her other kindergartners through the unexplained absence of their classmate. Throughout it all, she grappled with a range of emotions: relief that the abuse had been discovered, guilt that she hadn't recognized the signs sooner, and a deep concern for Lily's long-term well-being. "You did everything right," Darius assured her during one of their conversations. "You noticed something subtle that others missed, you created enough trust for Lily to eventually disclose, and you followed proper reporting procedures. Many teachers might have dismissed the scarf as a simple security object." "I just keep thinking about how long she was suffering," Hannah replied, her voice tight with emotion. 31 days in my classroom, wrapping that scarf around her neck every morning to hide what was happening. And now she won't have to hide anymore," Darius reminded her gently. "That's because of you." Approximately 2 weeks after Hannah had unwrapped Lily's scarf, she received permission to visit the child at her foster home. The little girl who greeted her seemed subtly different from the one she'd known in her classroom. Still quiet, but with a lightness that hadn't been there before. Most noticeably, she wore no scarf, the healing marks on her neck now covered only by a light application of medicated cream. "Ms. Hannah," Lily exclaimed with more animation than Hannah had ever witnessed from her. "Look at my drawing." The picture showed 2 figures holding hands, one clearly a child, the other a man, standing beside what appeared to be a hospital. When Hannah asked about it, Lily explained proudly that it was her and her father at his workplace. "I got to visit Baba at the hospital," she said. "We had ice cream in the cafeteria, and he showed me where he keeps all the floors clean." Hannah learned from the foster mother that supervised visits with Mr. Chun had begun, with positive reports from both the supervisor and therapist. Mr. Chun had immediately enrolled in the required parenting classes and was actively participating in counseling to learn how to better support his daughter through her trauma and grief over her mother. He's also adjusted his work schedule, the foster mother explained while Lily showed Hannah her room. "He's arranged to work day shifts 3 days a week, so he can be home in the evenings with Lily once she returns to his care. The hospital has been remarkably accommodating." The investigation had revealed additional context that helped explain how the abuse had remained undetected. Following his wife's death, Mr. Chun had fallen into depression, working excessive hours partly out of financial necessity but also as a coping mechanism. His mother-in-law had gradually isolated both him and Lily, limiting their interactions with others who might notice problems. Cultural respect for elders and traditional healing had further complicated the situation, though Mr. Chun was clear that he would never have sanctioned physical harm regardless of cultural practices. As the school year progressed, Lily returned to Hannah's classroom, now without her scarf and with a comprehensive support plan in place. The marks on her neck faded gradually, but Hannah knew the emotional scars would take longer to heal. With the school counselor's guidance, Hannah incorporated therapeutic activities into her classroom routine, art projects that allowed for emotional expression, stories about courage and resilience, and opportunities for Lily to experience appropriate control and agency throughout her day. The other children, with the simple acceptance characteristic of kindergartners, welcomed Lily back without questions about her absence or the fading marks on her neck. Hannah had prepared them with a basic, age-appropriate explanation that Lily had some owies that needed special care, and they had seamlessly reintegrated her into their classroom community. By late May, approximately 6 weeks after Hannah had discovered the abuse, Lily was scheduled to return to her father's custody. The grandmother had been charged with child abuse and was no longer permitted contact with Lily. Mr. Chun had completed his required classes and demonstrated his commitment to protecting his daughter. The apartment where they lived now had additional support systems in place: a neighbor who checked in regularly, a counselor who made home visits, and a schedule that allowed Mr. Chun to be more present in Lily's daily life. Hannah was invited to attend the final family court hearing where custody would be formally restored to Mr. Chun. Although she had initially hesitated, uncertain whether her presence would be helpful or intrusive, both the social worker and Mr. Chun had specifically requested she attend, citing her crucial role in Lily's journey to safety. The family court judge spoke directly to Hannah during the proceedings. "Ms. Collins, your attention to detail and willingness to look beyond the surface potentially saved this child's life. Too often, abuse escalates when initial signs are missed. Your actions represent exactly what we hope to see from educators who serve as mandated reporters." Hannah felt a complex mix of emotions as she watched Lily holding her father's hand, the little girl's face brighter and more animated than she had ever seen it in those first 31 days of class. While the court's recognition was touching, the true reward was seeing Lily free from fear and beginning to heal. After the hearing, Mr. Chun approached Hannah with Lily at his side. "Ms. Collins," he said formally, his voice thick with emotion, "I do not have words to properly thank you. You saw what I could not. You saved my daughter when I failed to protect her." "You didn't fail, Mr. Chen," Hannah replied gently. "You were deliberately kept in the dark by someone you trusted. What matters is how you've responded since learning the truth." She knelt to Lily's level. "And you, brave girl, helped save yourself by trusting me that day. I'm so proud of you." Lily smiled, a full, genuine smile that transformed her delicate features. "Baba says I don't have to wear scarves anymore unless I want to," she said. "And he got me these instead." She proudly displayed a collection of colorful hair ribbons clipped to her shirt. "I can choose a different one every day." The simple joy in this newly granted choice, the freedom to decide what to wear around her neck rather than being forced to conceal abuse, brought tears to Hannah's eyes that she quickly blinked away. As summer approached, the kindergarten team prepared for their annual recognition ceremony, a celebration of growth and learning before the children moved on to first grade. Hannah had worried that Lily might feel uncomfortable with the attention, but to her surprise, the little girl had blossomed in the weeks following her return to her father's care. She had begun forming friendships, participating more actively in class discussions, and even volunteering to feed the class pet. All significant developments for a child who had once tried desperately to remain invisible. On the day of the ceremony, Hannah had prepared special certificates highlighting each child's unique strengths and contributions to their classroom community. When Lily's name was called, the certificate recognized her for extraordinary courage and helping others learn about bravery. As Lily walked to the front of the room to receive her certificate, Hannah noticed something that caused her heart to swell with emotion. The child wore a light summer dress with a delicate lace collar that left her neck visible. The marks had faded to the point of near invisibility, but more significant was Lily's comfort in no longer hiding. In her hair was a bright blue ribbon, the same color as the scarf that had once concealed her suffering, now transformed into a symbol of choice and freedom. After the ceremony, as families mingled over punch and cookies, Mr. Chun approached Hannah with a small gift bag. "Lily picked this out for you," he explained. "She insisted it had to be this specific one." Inside was a beautiful silk scarf in shades of green that complemented Hannah's eyes. Attached was a card with carefully formed letters in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for seeing me. Love, Lily." "She said you knew how to look underneath things to find the truth," Mr. Chun explained quietly. "That you saw her when she was trying to stay hidden." Throughout the summer, Hannah received occasional updates through the school's communication system. Lily was attending a therapeutic summer program 3 mornings a week, where she was making friends and continuing to process her experiences in age-appropriate ways. Mr. Chun had connected with a support group for single fathers and was building a community of resources that would help both him and Lily thrive. When the new school year began in September, approximately 4 months after Hannah had unwrapped the wool scarf and discovered the abuse, she spotted Lily and her father during the first grade orientation. The transformation in both of them was remarkable, Lily animated and chattering excitedly. Mr. Chun relaxed and engaged, the bond between them visibly stronger than before. "Ms. Hannah," Lily called out, running over to hug her former teacher. "I'm going to be in Ms. Thompson's class. And look," she pointed proudly to her neck, where a delicate gold necklace with a tiny heart pendant rested against her skin. "Baba gave this to me for being brave. I wear it every day because I want to, not because I have to hide anything." The profound significance of this statement, a complete reversal from the traumatized child who had once desperately concealed her wounds, brought tears to Hannah's eyes. This was the true measure of healing. Lily now understood the difference between choosing to wear something and being forced to use clothing as concealment. Mr. Chun smiled warmly at Hannah. "We have good news," he said. "The court has permanently terminated my mother-in-law's rights to any contact with Lily. She will remain in supervised treatment for her actions. And," he added with visible pride, "I have been promoted at the hospital. I am now a coordinator for the environmental services team, with regular daytime hours and benefits." As they chatted, Hannah learned that the case had prompted the school district to implement enhanced training for all staff on recognizing signs of physical abuse, particularly those that might be culturally specific or deliberately concealed. The program had been named the Lily Protocol in honor of the brave kindergartner who had ultimately helped create safer systems for other children. Before they parted ways, Lily tugged on Hannah's hand. "Ms. Hannah? I told Ms. Thompson that if any kids in her class wear scarves every day, she should check underneath, just in case they need help too." The wisdom in this simple statement, a child now using her own traumatic experience to potentially help others, demonstrated a resilience that moved Hannah deeply. "That was very thoughtful of you, Lily. You're helping other teachers learn what to look for." 1 year after Hannah had first noticed Lily's concerning attachment to her wool scarf, she received a special invitation. Lily and her father were hosting a small celebration marking the anniversary of their new beginning, as they called it, and they wanted Hannah to attend along with the social worker and counselor who had supported their journey. The Chen apartment was transformed from the sparse, utilitarian space it had once been to a warm, inviting home filled with photographs, artwork, much of it Lily's, and evidence of the rich life father and daughter were building together. Lily, now a confident first grader, proudly showed Hannah her bedroom, which featured a wall dedicated to brave people, figures from history and literature who had overcome challenges, alongside photos of herself, her father, and the professionals who had helped her. Most moving was a small memory corner dedicated to Lily's mother, with photographs and mementos that allowed healthy remembrance rather than the forbidden grief her grandmother had punished. "Baba and I talk about Mommy now," Lily explained. "He says it's okay to be sad sometimes because that means we remember how much we loved her." During the celebration, Mr. Chan shared news that represented another step in their healing journey. He had been working with a cultural liaison to reconnect with his wife's extended family in another province of China, relatives who had been unaware of what his mother-in-law had done and were horrified by her actions. They had begun regular video calls, providing Lily with connections to her maternal heritage in healthy, supportive ways. As the gathering concluded, Lily presented Hannah with a drawing she had created. It showed two figures, clearly Lily and Hannah, with the larger figure unwrapping a blue scarf from the smaller one. Bright yellow lines, like sunshine, radiated from the scene. "My therapist asked me to draw the most important moment that changed everything," Lily explained solemnly. "This is when you saw my owies and didn't look away. That's when I knew grown-ups could help instead of hurt." Hannah carefully accepted the drawing, recognizing it as the precious gift it was, a child's testament to the moment when trust in adults had been restored after profound betrayal. "I'll keep this always, Lily. Thank you for being brave enough to let me help." Recovery hadn't been instant for Lily or her father. The physical wounds had healed more quickly than the psychological ones, leaving faint scars that would likely fade completely with time. The emotional healing had required consistent therapy, patience, and the gradual rebuilding of trust and security. But the foundation for safety had finally been laid, allowing the slow work of healing to begin. The systems, too, had changed. New training protocols, increased awareness, enhanced cultural competency. Small but significant steps toward ensuring no child would remain hidden beneath a scarf worn in fear and shame. As Hannah prepared to leave, she watched Lily and her father standing together in their doorway, the little girl's hand securely held in her father's larger one. Around Lily's neck was not a concealing scarf but the delicate heart necklace that represented being seen, protected, and loved. Not an ending, but the tangible beginning of a journey of healing that would continue to unfold in the months and years ahead. A journey that had begun the day a kindergarten teacher had noticed a wool scarf that never came off, and had cared enough to look beneath it. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the story, give this video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.